project coordinator, and I'm very proud today to announce the present event. And first of all, thank you all to be here. First and foremost, I'd like to thank our colleagues from sister projects, CHRONICLE and DigiBuild, for co-organizing this event together with us, which I hope will be of interest to you all. Today, we are trying to put together an international team from three different significant projects funded by European Community, with a primary focus on the future of construction and especially buildings. These hours will be discussing new approaches and technologies that we are exploring within the scope of our projects. And then we will try to introduce key concepts that are shaping the new horizon of the construction and building industry. Spreading and promoting important concepts about the future of BIM and in general on the construction industry supply chain is one of our main objectives. And that's why sharing approach and ideas with other partners is crucial for us. I am honored today to introduce our international speakers, Samy Iousef from CHRONICLE, Daniele Magrì from openDBL project, Angelina Katsifaraki from CHRONICLE, Mario Caputi from openDBL, Michele Allori from openDBL, and José Hernández Garcia from DigiBuild. And I don't gonna take so much time, so we can start our webinar with my colleague Daniele Magrì. He will introduce a speech about VR technology for BIM web-based. So enjoy our webinar and see you later at the end. Go ahead, please. Daniele, the stage is yours.
Your microphone is muted.
Yeah, your microphone is switched off.
Okay, thank you, Italo. Can you all see the presentation?
Yeah, we can see your presentation. Please,
okay.
You can start.
Thank you for joining us this webinar. My name is Daniele Magrì. I'm a software developer at 𝗕𝗂𝗏𝗃, and I'll be discussing the application of virtual reality to BIM and how this synergy can be beneficial for the construction industry. So let's dive right into a brief introduction to virtual reality. You probably heard quite a bit about VR lately, thanks to Apple's recent launch of the Apple Vision headset. And VR involves taking a digital environment and enabling users to interact with and experience it in a new way. Thanks to the stereoscopic visuals, VR provides an immersive and realistic method for visualizing these virtual environments. And when paired with BIM, virtual reality has the potential to revolutionize the construction industry by enhancing how we visualize projects and making use of the strength of both technologies. Typically, VR is experienced through an head-mounted display or within a spatially immersive display where you can step inside to interact with. Now let's see the advantages of using VR with BIM. VR can be used for safety, and equipment training, as well as for pre-construction planning. It allows for immersive viewing of the construction sites to check its conditions, as well as to analyze a virtual model of a project even before the work begins to identify potential problems. Obviously, this also leads to cost benefits by allowing teams to collaborate more efficiently. And it's an excellent method for increasing stakeholders' engagement by allowing them to immerse themselves in these virtual spaces and better evaluate the project from different perspectives. Another advantage of the VR maybe the most important one, is that all the interactions are extremely straightforward and simple. The learning curve is less step compared to other conventional solutions because you use your body to interact with the virtual scenes. And this allows the potential clients to better understand and interact with a project in a simple and intuitive way. But how can we explore to say we are building in VR? Well, it all starts with the 3D scanning. This lets us capture a space with incredible detail and precision. Then what we get is a point cloud, a bunch of data points in space that represent the scanned place. Then we have to optimize this data. That means cleaning it up and making sure it's ready for the real work, which is building our EFC model. EFC is like a digital twin of the building. It's a format that is useful for sharing and collaborating because it works well with all sorts of different software. And then we have the last step. We're moving it into the web. With the final web EFC model production, we can then work on our models from our web browser to make everything more accessible, more collaborative, and faster. To make this possible, we use 𝗕𝗓𝗔𝗔, a lightweight JavaScript library designed to handle large and complex EFC files quickly and efficiently, and compatible with any platform. It's a component of the 𝗕𝗓𝗔𝗔 project, which aims to simplify the creation of open BIM applications. And as a toolkit for BIM within the JavaScript ecosystem, 𝗕𝗓𝗔𝗔 is compatible with popular 3D libraries like 𝗕𝗏JS and Babylon.js. This simplifies the development of 3D BIM applications. So thank you for your attention. This was just a brief introduction to this new evolution in the world of constructions. These are my contact details. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I will leave the stage to the next speaker.
Thank you, Daniel, for your presentation. Does anyone have any questions? You can raise them or put in the chat. I think we are good. We can move on to the next presentation. Angelina, you can share your slides.
Give me 1 second. So it would be great if someone can confirm you can actually see my screen.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Thank you for that. So again, from my side, hello. We will present the project CHRONICLE together with my colleague, Samy, who is representing Q today, Q Technologies. I am representing Hypertech, that is the technical coordinator of the project. So I will start with a couple of words about the CHRONICLE project before giving the floor to Samy for the more technical details. What is CHRONICLE? So in a nutshell, CHRONICLE is based upon data, dynamic data coming from IoT installed on site and static data of the building. Static data meaning the BIM models of the building in question, the buildings in question, which are stored, managed, and distributed by the CHRONICLE Common Data Environment. So this is the basis of CHRONICLE, and its heart is the CHRONICLE Digital Twin Framework. This digital twin framework delivers accurate simulations of the building itself by not only incorporating physics-based modeling of the building, also based on its BIM model, but also enhancing its performance through actual data collected from the IoT infrastructure on site, and by incorporating the human aspect, so usage profiles and specific tenant preferences that have been trained on real data. There are a lot of different stakeholders interested and affected by the CHRONICLE solution, including public authorities that gain access to new administrative services, such as a dynamic building logbook and having access to the carbon bill calculations of the building. The owners and investors, of course, who have an opportunity to de-risk their investments through thorough whole life cycle analysis of the building and more accurate planning. Then we have the tenants, who will receive a series of user-friendly apps for different levels of interest that provide accurate performance rating and analytics and evaluate the building performance through its operational period. And they also receive actionable recommendation to improve its performance. Then there are other business stakeholders, such as ESCOs, who have an opportunity to better plan and size their solution, have multi-criteria analysis, and also access to a blockchain component. Sorry? Okay. So a blockchain component enable access to SLA governance. Then we have the facility managers, who have a new tool to improve the operation and maintenance of the building, and not only oversee the real-time operation of the building and see analytics of its past and current performance, but also gain a predictive and preventive maintenance functionality. And last but not least, engineers and constructors, who actually get to more accurately plan ahead for building renovations. They have access now through the CHRONICLE tools to a building renovation passports and ensure, of course, service life compliance for their buildings. Then just a quick overview of the project numbers. We're 18 partners from 8 different countries. It's a 42-month project. And at the moment, we are planning and deploying, as we speak, 5 different full-scale pilots, while all the testing taking place at this point are based on real-life data collected from 2 pre-validation sites. So there is a brief estimation from our side that there are about 150 dwellings with people interested in participating in the CHRONICLE validation activities. So just a quick overview to the CHRONICLE's business cases. We have identified, with the support of all partners, 5, let's say, categories of business cases under which our use cases will be structured. We have the comfort-based services that allow building renovations with a main scope of improving the tenant's comfort overall, while also maintaining the good energy performance of the building. That also allows for new investments in the assessment of such endeavors. Then we have dynamic and user-friendly EPCs. This is a wider business case that delivers operational and user-friendly analytics, actually giving information on the building that is actionable and interesting to the user to improve overall the performance of the building. We have the building performance and carbon footprint optimization. So that should be corrected, but somehow it's not. Sorry for that. Which has to do with performing a multi-factor optimization with different variables of interest to assess different renovation scenarios, taking into account the whole life carbon calculation of the building throughout its lifetime and the different stages in its lifetime, while also allowing a very interesting functionality, which is the post-renovation validation of the proposed renovation scenarios based on real-life data. We hope that we will manage to to validate that throughout the project's lifetime and have really nice results on that. Then the building operation monitoring, optimization and maintenance, which, as I mentioned previously, allows the real-time monitoring of the building operation, while also providing different notifications for maintenance that allow the proactive and reactive actions of a facility manager. And last but not least, the digital building logbooks. That is a new tool enabling the exchange, the trusted exchange of building information throughout different stakeholders in a secure way, while also creating, let's say, like an identity of the building, a record with specific milestones throughout the building lifetime that enables different stakeholders to have a complete overview over the entire building's lifetime and exchange information with other people interested in a simple and secure way. So just before I close my presentation, to give you a few information about the currently deployed pilots of the project. So there are two kinds of information that we actually want to extract from these pilot installations. We have the static data. So you would say this is the BIM model of the building based on different ontologies, like established ontologies, where we have the static building information, including the materials for the insulation, for the glazing, then any rest production on site, and of course, HVAC information and so on. And then we have dynamic data. Dynamic data includes metering of different loads, from EV charging, total energy metering, PV production, heating and cooling, and so on. Environmental information, indoor air quality, ambient conditions, occupancy sensing, name it. And then we also have the weather information that can either come from a local station or through dedicated APIs. All of these measurements are made through off-the-shelf available devices, well-known IoT devices installed on site and orchestrated by different gateways depending on the solution and the solution provider per pilot. Then the collected information is transferred to the solution provider cloud, and then this is integrated with the common data environment, the CD, for a shorter name, for which Samy is going to discuss in his presentation now. So thank you for that. Samy, I'll give you the floor and the screen.
Perfect. I can share my screen. Great. Could you please confirm that you can see my screen in presenter's view?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having us today. I'm Samy, and as Angelina mentioned, I will be providing you with more technical aspects on how we, within CHRONICLE, we are trying to leverage BIM and IoT to effectively enhance smart readiness. So, as I guess in all the other projects, also in CHRONICLE, we have to deal with a great amount of data, both static and real-time dynamic data that we receive from the various sources. And of course, as Angelina mentioned, when we are talking about static data, we mostly refer to BIM data. And for real-time dynamic information, we are referring to the IoT data that we receive from the various sensors through an IoT platform. So in most cases, this data is quite difficult to be interpreted by the various components, in this case, the CHRONICLE components, where we actually have large data sets or a long list, let's say, of a data set that shows how a certain variable, let's say temperature, changes over a period of time, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you name it. So in most cases, this information needs to be translated and presented in a meaningful way for these components. Therefore, actually comes a need for a component that is going to collect all this data, store it, and manage it. And by manage it, I mean trying to find the correlation between this BIM and IoT data to effectively have a joint representation that, after sharing it with the various components, will allow a common analysis. So what we aim to do within CHRONICLE is first to develop a so-called common BIM-based data model. One can think of a data model as a flowchart, that illustrates the different entities. Here I have on the right-hand side an example from a past project, BIM, that's a public deliverable. And by entities, we mean the what's written within the yellow boxes. So we have a building, a story, apartments, spaces, and elements, and their attributes. So, for instance, every building has a name, has a description, building address. Similarly, building stories, name and description. Spaces, for instance, we have a maximum amount of occupants and a minimum amount of occupants. And of course, this data model presents the relationships between those entities. So every building has a number of stories. Every story has a number of apartments. Same goes for spaces. And all these entities, they are characterized, let's say, by an entity that's called element. So within CHRONICLE, our focus of the common BIM-based data model is on what we call semantic web technologies in order to achieve this connection and measure of the cross-domain building data, both BIM and IoT data, mainly because by using these semantic web technologies, we can have what we also called earlier a common data environment that does all this job of collecting, storing, managing, and effectively sharing this diverse data, both BIM and IoT, enhancing thus interoperability among the various software system and components that are going to consume this data, and of course among the stakeholders. So within CHRONICLE, this common BIM-based data model is built upon two ontologies, the BOT ontology, and at least this first, at this stage of the project, the BOT ontology and the brick schema. While on the left-hand side, we have the BOT ontology, which practically, let's say, describes the building topology and the relationship between its main components, namely the site, building, story, spaces. The example that we saw earlier actually is based on this BOT ontology. And on the right-hand side, we have an example of this brick schema, which actually connects the several elements with specific IoT equipments. Here we have an example of an air handling unit, which is connected to a variable air volume box. It's connected to specific zones and rooms, and eventually to other IoT sensors like supply air temperature, airflow sensor, and so on and so forth. The second part that the CHRONICLE project is developing actually this mechanism that is going to collect, manage, share, and of course store this data. It's called Common Data Environment. As Angelina mentioned, hereafter we will be calling it CDE. On the right-hand side, we have a conceptual architecture of CHRONICLE, and you see that the CDE stands between these external data sources, IoT data, weather data, and 3D BIM data, and a digital twin framework, which composes of two main elements, the physics-based and the data-driven digital twin, which are the largest consumers of data coming from the external sources that both work in a cost simulation approach to provide meaningful input for the other applications of CHRONICLE, such as the digital building logbook, the performance evaluator, renovation planner, and the investment appraisal. So how do we achieve this kind of fusion between the BIM and IoT data? So first, in order to do so, we had to think sort of in a segregated manner. So see how we are going separately to manage the IoT data and how we are going to manage the BIM data. So on the left-hand side, we have the approach, a 4-layer approach, where we have the data that is ingested through a message broker that leverages several technologies like Mosquito, Rabbit, MQ, and Kafka. That passes on later to layer 2, where the information is authenticated and the users that are providing this kind of information are actually authorized. Before it can pass to layer 3, where we have all the pre-processing of the information before it can be stored and eventually shared with the other components through what we call RESTful APIs. So on the right-hand side, a kind of similar manner, we have the authentication authorization of the information and the user. We have a BIM viewer that's standing on top of the CD that's based on Unity WebGL applications and several pre-processing functionalities like the BIM to mesh converter, which is particularly essential for the visualization of the BIM data. Compliance checking of the BIM file, which practically means checking of the BIM file against a specific schema. In our case, we are making use of the IFC schema. And finally, completeness checking of this IFC, which is checking of the IFC file against project-specific, let's say, requirements. So, for instance, we need to make sure that before the IFC file passes on to the digital twin, that it captures all the necessary thermal properties of the entities like the windows or the doors. Eventually, we combine these two approaches under a common roof, let's say, which we call CDE, that practically encapsulates all the functionalities that we saw earlier, with all the functionalities for the BIM and data to effectively manage both BIM and IoT data based, of course, on the common BIM-based data model. As I mentioned, on top of this, on top of the CD, the common data environment, there lies a visualization application that is used for OpenBIM and visualization of both OpenBIM and IoT data. It's developed based on Unity WebGL application, and it does not only allow the user to visualize BIM data, but also building IoT-related data and other key performance indicators related to energy, cost, sustainability, comfort, etc. Of course, in a manner that is easily consumed and understood by the user. Within the framework of CHRONICLE, this viewer is designed specifically for the facility manager, who will need to accurately monitor the building performance in terms of its total energy use, levels of CO2, allowing the facility manager to effectively benchmark the energy baseline, and in case this is actually needed, proceed with a predictive maintenance. So I will be showing you, hopefully you can see the video with the first version of this viewer that I'm talking about. At this stage of the project, we have not yet introduced the functionality of IoT data management. So here, what we see is practically the BIM visualization, where the user can upload a specific BIM file, and based on this element tree, decompose the IFC file, following, of course, the common BIM-based data model and the bot ontology. As I mentioned, that every site has a building. Well, of course, there can be multiple buildings, but in this particular case, we have one. Every building has plenty of stories where the user can easily hide or unhide, and once the user is particularly interested in one story, can navigate through its main elements, and via this this element tree can dive into one level where we can visualize the specific elements that compose this building story. Here we have a list of those like sensors, roofs, space heaters, and so on, HVAC system, windows. So this is the part of the functionality that we will be slowly integrate into our BIM viewer. So, and actually this is the part where we connect the two worlds, the BIM and the IoT data. When the user is particularly interested in visualizing IoT data from a sensor, can click on that one. Here's just an example, and visualize for a specific period, of course, at real time. I mean, every time at the point that data is available to visualize consumption, and if is interested to more ambient sensing metering like temperature over a specific period of time, can do so just by clicking on the specific sensor. Of course, afterwards, we aim also to integrate specific functionality that the user can click on the HVAC system of their interest and see the respective HVAC consumption. So closing up a bit this presentation, and what is the added value that we in CHRONICLE try to achieve by leveraging this fusion of BIM and IoT data, is not only to provide an integrated digital twin framework that works in a co-simulation manner and consumes both BIM and IoT data, but to eventually deliver also an enhanced data-driven smart readiness indicator framework that actually enables the use of BIM data, starting from the 𝗂𝗏𝗏 methodology, a data-driven 𝗂𝗏𝗏 way readjustment, to a BIM-enabled 𝗂𝗏𝗏 input calculation, meaning that through designated, let's say, property sets that will be introduced already from the BIM authoring tool. In this particular case, it's Revit. We can, at a later point, automatically and dynamically retrieve all the necessary information from the BIM file to allow us to have an 𝗂𝗏𝗏 score and be able to award or not a specific level under a specific service of, for instance, in this particular case, the heating domain. Then, sorry? Okay. Then, of course, the other point that we aspire to do is to deliver dynamic energy performance certificates, as Angelina mentioned, not only based on asset and operational rating, but also EPCs will be dynamically updated, and their content is actually will be regularly updated based on well-refined KPIs that will be a result of a calibration, let's say, and adaptation from this co-simulation approach that I described earlier during this as part of the digital twin framework. Finally, having all the static and dynamic building information, this will be later on made available to the CHRONICLE digital building logbook that is based upon a blockchain ecosystem, where multiple stakeholders can log in, like AECs, ESCOs, facility manager, owners, and public authorities, given specific use cases that are currently being described within the CHRONICLE framework, interact with each other, and perform the data-driven, performance-based driven transactions. And of course, based on the fact that there are the necessary tools and input, allowing them to proceed with informed decisions. That would be from my side. Please let me know if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Angelina and Samy, for your presentation. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat or you can raise. Hello, Mario. How are you doing? You're on mute.
Okay, thanks a lot. Sorry for the delay. I had another meeting which was very urgent.
It's all right. Okay, so we can move on to the next speaker. Michele, you can share your slides.
Oh, okay. Nice. So nice to meet you. I'm Michele Allori from 𝗕𝗂𝗶𝗃𝗃. I'll just share my screen in a moment. Give me a second. Here we are. Can anyone see?
Yes.
Awesome. So this will be a bit different from the other presentations. Now, I know that in these kind of webinars, everyone is always afraid to raise their hands and ask questions. So instead of presenting what openDBL is going to do as a project, we would like to present you with a bunch of questions. So I'll be asking the questions to you guys, and I hope that some of you will interact with me regarding the state of VR in BIM. So what is the place of virtual reality inside of building information management, not modeling? And after that, maybe we can raise some questions about the future of this technology and what is and how is it going to shape the market of the whole eco chain. So I'll go straight away with some interactions. So I would love for any of you to kind of interact with me. I cannot see whether you raise your hand or not. So maybe Simran, if you could do me the favor of kind of managing the people who maybe want to raise their hands and include themselves in this kind of discussion that we're going to have.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So I want to brainstorm, and anyone who's listening, what do you think that VR is bringing to the table when it comes to BIM? So these are a set of 3 questions. So the first question is, what do you think that VR adds to the BIM process and experience? What is your opinion here? Don't be shy. There are no wrong answers, by the way. I know that everybody says this, but technically speaking, this is let's say a developing technology. So there is nothing that is set in stone at the moment. So anything could be a potential avenue. No one? Okay.
Well, of course, one would say enhance user engagement.
Okay.
Certainly.
So one is, of course, it's user engagement, but what do we mean as user, though? Like the building user, like the ultimate people walking in the buildings?
Yeah, ultimately, I would go for the second one. It would mainly target the engagement.
Okay.
Well, let's say of the tenants or the owners.
Great. So when we're talking about the main beneficiary, I think a lot of us think about the client. The ultimate owner of the building is going to receive some information, possibly before even the building is constructed, right? And so why should we care? Well, this is kind of the presentation that I was going for. Why are we caring so much about this? And there's a trick to this kind of dilemma, because if we go to the next slide, we see that we're talking about immersion, right? So there is something that comes with immersion, and that is both a risk and an opportunity. So the idea is, if we are talking about VR strictly for the end user or for the owner of the building, this becomes really a risk for the company rather than some added value. Mostly because we have to ask ourselves, what is VR giving the user that is more than just a simple 3D visualization on a computer screen? And that is immersion. Now, immersion is a tricky thing, because when you are immersed in something, if it's done well, of course, you are basically sold a product, right? So it's easier to sell a product when you can see, we can make the customer see how the product is going to end up looking like. And it's even better if the client can walk inside of that product. You can see, can interact with it, and so on and so on. But what are you creating? It's also an expectation of reality. Now we see that this is not actual reality, this is virtual reality. So our main risk here is to create a discrepancy. So what happens when what you are displaying is not exactly what are you trying to build? And I'm not meaning about just the simple simple geometry and the visualization, right? You are creating an experience. If some client walks into the VR headset into the building and it has this beautiful impression of a very cozy, let's say this is for a house, for a cozy room with warm lighting, and maybe there's a fireplace crackling. And then when you actually build the thing, there is no warm lighting there, and the room feels cold. Well, the dimensions are exactly the same, but you create an expectation that is different from the actual experience, right? So you are creating two different experiences. So this is a risk, and I think we are going to go and see why this risk might become like something that is quite severe in the whole market thing. So the very difficult part is how to actually create an experience that is representative enough of reality where it does not create a discrepancy. So, as we said, this is not good technically. It's a risk for the company, but it's amazing for the customer. I mean, and why would that be? I mean, if the customer ends up having something that they did not expect because the expectation that was put onto him was way better. Well, I think there is a future layer to that, and that is the layer of contracting. Now, VR is quite frankly a very new technology. Well, it's not really that new, but it's getting mainstream enough right now. And of course, as said, with the launch of the Apple Pro Vision, this thing is gonna probably blow up in the next couple of years. But if we really think about it, let's think about when the internet was becoming big in the 90s and in the first 2000s. That was something crazy. There was not much regulation on it, but right now, the EU, the USA, and China, of course, there are a bunch of many regulations about internet usage. So we are justified to expect regulations about VR. And if VR in building information modeling gets to a certain point of fame, maybe there are some pioneer projects, maybe from the European Union, who knows, that can start to deliver. The risk is if these don't deliver actually what they promise, is that some regulation are going to come in, and in some way, shape, or form, they are going to protect the customer and basically say, okay, what you are going to see is expected to be what you are going to end up with. So VR expectations are going, in my humble opinion, are going to enter contracts in the future, not just, okay, by contract, you are obligated to provide me with a VR experience. No. By contract, what you show me with a VR experience has to match what is real, because already it's happening with 2D representations, with prospects or 3D renderings. If that doesn't match, the client has a contract to uphold in front of possibly a judge. So VR becomes an insurance for the client. So this is why it's good for the client. The client has a tool, an extra tool to ensure that the company is doing a good job, whether that is the architecture firm or the construction company or whatever, right? So what does this mean to the market then? Because the real question is, will VR, being a risk for the company and being an opportunity for the client, be good for the growth of the whole eco industry and construction market? Well, tricky questions again. So I think, and I'm a positive thinker, we are in Methodology, we are very optimistic that this could drive us towards the quality of the result. Meaning that if you are a company that provides VR to the customer, you are incentivized to produce better result. Even better if your actual experience is better than the virtual experience and the virtual reality that the customer had. So one very stupid and small example is, if I have an experience in VR for the customer that runs into a room and he's able to open a window, and the movement of the window is very flowy, natural, and it's easy. But then when you build the thing, the window gets stuck after 20 centimeters and he has to force it open. Yeah, that is an expectation of reality that has been not encountered. But if the window opens up, and it opens up maybe even more than what the BIM experience gave, that's a plus. That's a win. So they are incentivized to create better results, okay, in spite of possibly some kind of extra revenue. This means that there is less space to cut corners. When there is less space to cut corners, the industry kind of veers towards the companies that are able to create a quality product. We see it with food. When a regulation comes in that gives us limitation on what food can contain, of course, the market will not only steer towards something better because it's the regulation, you have to do it, but most times there is this kind of counter culture to that piece of food. If we think about, I don't know, like sodas, for example, if we have some regulations that tell us that sodas cannot contain a set amount of sugar or whatever, it's not like most companies are going to produce just the maximum amount of sugar inside of the soda, and they are going to have it done with that. No, automatically the more healthier sodas are going to pop up and say that, oh, we have even less sugar than what the maximum amount is, and this creates kind of a movement, right? So this is what we hope. It's of course an optimistic view. It's not a prediction for the future, but this is one of the chances. So companies creating BIM relating to exclusively, we're talking about the experience of the end user, are driven towards something that is a better result, something that is more consistent. There is the other phase of the model. So who is going to really win here? So we kind of already hinted that at the fact that the customer is really the one who's winning in this presentation. But who will survive? If we exclude the customer from the system, then the question is, okay, how about the companies? Who are the companies that are going to survive in this landscape? Because if you don't include VR in your process to your client, you either are going to be seen as someone who is afraid to not deliver on their promises, or you're going to be seen as someone who is behind, right? At the same time, if you do provide VR in your projects, if you do provide a VR experience to your client, if you're not good with it, if you're not compliant to the promises you've made, you are going to disappear. You are going to get bad reviews in a sense, even though it's not really the case in this field. But you are going to get a name for yourself that it's not pleasurable. So the risk is the big players, the one that have massive capitals, those are going to be the ones that, since they have that massive capital, they can afford to jump ahead of the competitions by just throwing money at the problem and getting the very best results in the VR technology, simply because they have the resources to do so. So at the same time, the companies that have had early access to VR technology, that were being the pioneers, those are the really the small ones that could somewhat compete with the big players, with the massive capitals, with the big construction companies, because they started early, so they got a head start. So what I'm saying is if you are in construction and you are planning to do VR, start researching now. Well, start researching maybe 10 years ago, but ideally, the before you start, the better you get, because if you don't get better now, the big players will get better. They will get the resources, the very good modelers and the very good Unity developers or Unreal Engine developers, and they will steal guys from the gaming industry, which is a mess right now about the layoffs. And I don't know if you followed something about it, but it's crazy right now. And probably most of the gaming industry professionals are going to end up in VR and non-gaming experiences. And lastly, does really the customer win? Because in our experience, has the customer ever won when the massive capital companies have gotten the hold of the market? Do the customer really win when it's a monopoly or an oligopoly? That can become a tricky question. Some might say that the customer has won with Amazon. Some might say that it hasn't won. I won't dive into the politics here, but this is a question that is important to ask ourselves. So if we step out a bit and we kind of conclude this intervention is, okay, we talked about VR, a VR headset on the head of a customer for an experience, right? But of course, as Davide said before, there are other ways to include VR in BIM that do not rely on creating an experience and not creating then expectation. So it is possible that in the future, depending on who is creating these kind of systems, the customer will not be the one wearing the headset, if not for the short period to create an experience. This would probably occur, but as we have seen with the internet, with the smartphone, with the tablet, that's a paradigm that has been very, very common, where something comes up, so it's a breakthrough in communication, and becomes incredibly widespread, incredibly quickly, and it's a gimmick at first. When we got the internet for the first time, when we were kids or young, we got the internet to chat with people or to play silly games online and to not do anything really productive. But at the same time, behind the scene, there were some pioneers, some companies that they were going to use internet for something different, for something more technical, for something more internal, if you would say that. And now internet is everything, for us. We use it every day. We had the silly program to chat with the other people that were passionate about your same book has become Meet, has become Zoom, has become whatever, right? Same with smartphone. When the smartphone came up, it was groundbreaking because, of course, Apple did it, so it must be good. And that was good for the environment of technology because everyone was good at it. But a lot of people were just asking, what am I going to do with this thing? What is it useful for? I can just call, yeah, but I can call with a normal phone. So the stupid games started popping up where you could just move a lightsaber around and have the noise made, and then you could have the same identical thing but with a flame of a Zippo lighter and something very stupid. And again, it became a gimmick. But then again, something on the back on the backside of this, they just started developing, and now the smartphone has tons of applications. They are basically programs that are specific to that kind of system, and they won't work in a different environment. Yeah, of course, we do have something that is, you have an app version of a program, and you have a PC version of a program, or whatever, but there are some things that you must do with a smartphone because doing it otherwise just wouldn't work. So you created a system. The tablet, same identical thing. At the beginning, there were people going around airports having calls with their tablets because they just bought a tablet and they needed to use it for something. And so they made phone calls with a 20 by 30 piece of glass in their hands. But then again, if we go to sound engineers, they use tablets for soundstage performances and whatever. So again, this became something outside of the gimmick. So this is going to happen, in my opinion, with the AR, VR, spatial computing, if we want to use the Apple way of saying things. What is really coming up to this is a perfectionism in the technology and a big leap forward, however handled by a very, very big company, but something that is encouraging new companies to find new ways to create functionalities within a system. It's a weird paradigm where all four of these things, internet, smartphone, tablet, VR, they weren't created to solve a problem or to solve a need. They just were created because they were cool. Well, maybe not the internet, of course. The internet it's kind of different, but the smartphone, tablet, VR, they were created because they were very cool looking. They were technologies of the future that we imagined in movies and books and in shows and whatever. We wanted that. And then we are starting to understand, okay, what can we do with this? We did not create a system for a need. We are creating a need for a system, which is weird, but it's already happening. So if you go around and see the videos of people reviewing the Apple Vision Pro, most of them are saying, oh, this is amazing, this is cool, you can do so much stuff with it. But at the same time, I don't know what to do with it. Because yeah, I can talk with people. I can do the same thing on a computer. I can watch a movie. I can do the same thing on a computer and whatever. They are gimmicks, really. But what they also are is a perfection of the technology. They are perfecting the technology. So even if I can just watch a movie and that's it, and that's relatively stupid, at the same time, I can notice that the way that the virtual reality holds onto the real reality of the actual reality, I can see that, okay, this moves much more glued to the actual reality. So we are having a better performance, a better experience on that point. So someone might say, okay, what if I'm not a customer? What if I'm not the end client of the building? What if I am the, I don't know, facility manager? Now I have a virtual reality that locks onto, an augmented reality that locks onto an actual reality so thoroughly and so perfectly that I might be able to go around the building wearing the headset and signaling stuff without having to pop up a phone, pop up an app, signal whatever problem, whatever intervention I might need, get it up to the DBL, to the digital building logbook, and someone gets notified. I might not need it to do it. I might not need to do it anymore because the technology is getting there. I did not have this need before, but now that I have an headset, now that I have a platform, I can see how I can use it. So in the end, I think the idea is that VR is probably not going to be the big thing for experience, for user experience, but it's going to be the big thing for collaboration and for usage of many tools behind the scenes, way before the client experiences. And the client experience is going to remain somewhat of a gimmick, but it's going to be what drives the progress forward. So thank you very much. These are my contacts if you want to contact me or the team at eMethody. And thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Michele, for your presentation. You did have a comment earlier in the chat regarding the risks you were talking about.
Building owners to experience decisions on spatial configuration, materials. Yeah, exactly. So this is part of the owner experience that we're talking about. So I have a 10+ years experience as an architectural visualization and internal rendering, specialized in internal architecture. So this is very much what I've done for most of my job life. And I absolutely agree that this is a step further. I do not want you only to see what the color of that wall is going to be. You can actually stay in the room. But this ties into, of course, what we said before. This is going to be a very problematic thing if you messed up the lighting in your VR headset and they had the impression that that wall was much darker the first time that they saw it, and now it's blasted with light because in the VR headset you put the sun in the wrong direction, for example.
Thank you so much. We can move to our next speaker. Mario, you can share your screen and present.
Okay. Thank you very much for the timing. And I don't know if you are seeing the presentation.
Yes, we can see.
Perfect. Okay, now my point is that we don't talk about technology because technology is a matter of time. Every year something new is happening. It's getting always more difficult to keep track of it. But there is something which never change, which is the change management. We are here because the European Commission gave us several grants. We won the calls. We had wonderful technological ideas. And but the European Commission is also very interested in how can we make money out of it. The Commission is spending so much budget, and sometimes they said, okay, but we want to see something back. And the best project are those projects that goes into the money, like our financial people say. Therefore, I don't talk about technology, I talk about methodology. And the methodology is change management. How can I really bring results out of technology? And therefore is do and don'ts about that. What are we talking about today is who are we? Intuit is the founder of the consortium for openDBL. We called everybody around the table and we won the grant. What is an industrial revolution? The BIM revolution, the father of openBIM, of openDBL, which is our product, and change management, how we want to win, how we want to get money out of the whole story. Intuit is a consulting company born in 2001 in Italy. We work since the beginning in 3 industrial verticals: corporate real estate management, information communication technology, and of course, the professional services, practically the architects, the engineering companies, the constructor, and so on. On these, we do very boring things: consulting, change management, digital solution, and then training and coaching. And for training and coaching, we have created in Italy, but also elsewhere, master degrees about BIM management in Politecnico di Milano in 2015, and with Ljubljana and Minho in Portugal since 2019, 5 years ago. So we also wrote a lot of books about BIM, digitation, blah, blah, blah. And also we work with Bureau Veritas for the certification. So that's it for who we are. We are a small consulting company, and I am the owner and the founder, Mario Caputi. So the industrial evolution, look at this very nice slide. And we were in the 80s, but not in the 19, but the 1880s, so 2 centuries ago almost. And there were no electricity yet. There were steam power, and the steam power was putting power on these machines, which were producing textiles, like in the UK before the Industrial Revolution. Then what happened? The Industrial Revolution came, energy came, everybody was happy because the bills were cheaper, and but didn't change anything. As you can see from the same, I would say, production equipment, the only change were these lines, electrical lines, going into the electrical engine, which were substituting the engine of power, the steam power. But what was around? Around was fear. Hey, Petunia, did you hear about electricity? The electricity, it can kill. And she said, yes, of course, it's also natural, and we will take away jobs. This is 1900s. Fear of change is always there when we bring new technology around the world. But the real value was coming when we changed the way we were working. Now, there is not anymore a power central that goes to the machines like the other slides before. Now, each worker could have his own electrical plug in front of himself, and the electrical line was born. So if we want to get money out of the technological revolution, we have to change our mind, we have to change the way we work. Otherwise, it's always an useless exercise. And how do we work today? This is a very nice slide. We say always, how do I send this package? Where is the latest version? I can see the send. I cannot see the email. The file is too heavy. I cannot open the file. Lots of data entry, blah, blah, blah. Practically, we are playing balls, basketball, volleyball, football, whatever you want. We change the way we don't change the way we work if we bring the wonderful tools that we are all talking about. The problem with this kind of interaction will always be there. And what is BIM? Why do we want to bring the revolution of BIM? There is one criteria, the economical criteria, and this criteria is this one, is practically the total cost of ownership. If we take a building after 20 years of economic life, design, the nicest architects, the Italian stars or the American stars, they only have a 5% of the total value. Construction, 30% of the total value. What is the most important part is the operation and facility management. You can do the subtraction yourself. It's 65% of the whole. If we don't understand that this must be the goal of the digital revolution, every tool, every technology is useless. We have to think about the BIM model. We have to think about the information content, like we saw in the presentation before. We have to think about digital twins that are related to operation and maintenance. And this is the do of the whole revolution. And what is BIM? We can spend as consultant hours and hours talking with our clients about BIM uses, scan to BIM, common data environment, digital construction, facility management, information management, and so on and so on. We can spend hours working with you about what is your BIM, why do you want BIM, what is your BIM uses. Well, we have a client now in Rome where Michele is coming from. And by the way, you see Michele, you think, oh, he comes from Norway. No, no, he comes from Rome, and he lives in Rome, and he speaks Roma, with a Roman accent. But in Rome, our client told us, I want BIM for 4D. That's it, nothing else. I don't care about digital twin, virtual reality, whatever. We said, are you crazy? As consultant, he said, I want a very simple BIM. And this is his world, and he's very happy with it. So how do you do this? You have to try to let him understand that there is value also if he only does 4D BIM. And 4D BIM is really middle age, no more than that. Going on the BIM users, after the BIM users, then we want to see the data. If we only concentrate on 4D, our data are the timing, the scheduling, the programming, when people are coming to install the window. But if I want to think about facility management, I go to my very simplistic client and say, okay, you want 4D BIM that is only a 4D BIM, but at least think about when your window needs to be cleaned, needs to be repaired, can be, how do you say, destroyed, if it has a material that can be, again, put into the circular economy, and so on and so on. Even if I do a very small BIM, then I can always look at facility management. What is important for me in the whole total cost of ownership? And as you can see here, when we started studying BIM and writing on BIMs, my books on BIM speak about BIM 7D. Now we are talking about BIM 10D. And if we talk in 3 years, we will have BIM 15D, and so on and so on and so on. Every dimension has data with it. And at the moment, it's very difficult to understand how many data do I really need to think about the real value. Do I need millions of data? Who can make sense of all this data? And if I think about data, then I have also to think about classifications, standards, because in Italian we say finestra, and in Spanish we say ventana, and in English we say window, and so on and so on. What does it mean? It means that if we do BIM and if we choose our data, we also need to understand that we have to align the same standards. Otherwise, it's like having a Word file talking to different languages. Another do and don'ts is the data drops. And when I go to my students and say, do you know what is data drop? They don't know. Or they know only because they have a song, a very old song that raining keeps, hello? Raining keeps falling on their, or raindrops were falling on their heads. Only on that they can understand. But if we do a BIM project that takes 2-3 years before completion, then we have to think about the do and don'ts also from the very beginning. The BIM, so the largest data drop one, is the BIM at the end of the design phases, when the architects and engineers leave the stage because the constructors are coming into the scene. And what does it mean? Mean that the constructor will create out of the BIM the PIM, the product information model, which means is the database that grows during the site operations, and the BIM changes that happen, the changes at the BIM model that happen during the site construction. At the end of the construction, when I have the as-built, when I have the physical, the virtual asset, then I have the AIM, asset information model, which is the third data drop. And this is the most important one. If I stop the whole work after the BIM, all the rest is useless. If I stop the whole work after the PIM, 6 months later, all my assets, all my database about asset is old as well. Therefore, if I do IM, I have to keep it updated. This is, again, a lot of money to be spent on keeping it updated, a lot of efforts. Another Italian client told me that now they have circa 1,000 BIM models, and their biggest problem now is how to keep them updated. If I don't update the link between the object, the virtual reality object or the BIM object, to the real content, information content, then I am dead. It's all useless. My total cost of ownership will not be put under control. Therefore, what is important to understand is I have a database that grows while the company builds and then while the company maintains the whole story. And this cost and has also a sort of procedures that need to be taken into account. And if we go on, then, and we talk about the facility management or the most important thing, I don't need to know a lot of data to be able to manage my facilities. Important is to have answer to these five key questions. What do I own? What is the condition of the asset? Where are they? How long will they still function? And what is the economic value? If I have the data for these 5 key questions, I can manage my facilities trying to get the value out of this 65% of total cost of ownership. And by the way, sorry, I made a mistake in changing my slide. And by the way, there are facilities that my computer is blocked now. I don't know why. I don't know why it's blocked. Frozen.
Do you want to reshare? Try resharing it.
Yeah.
Maybe close and reopen the presentation.
I don't know.
It's the secret of IT.
It's a secret of IT, what I was speaking about. Otherwise, I have to go out. Let's see. Screen. Okay, I go, now I present another thing. Let's see. Do you see something?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, it's turning. It's the new feature of Teams that made me crazy, because I can present inside Teams, but it was blocked at a certain point, blocked. So now, okay, now it works. Can you see? Yes. Can I continue?
Yes.
Okay, so we have solutions that are able to support practically this data flow or this necessity to manage the data. And of course, we're talking about scan to BIM, BIM authoring, common data environments, digital site works and construction, facility management, and digital twins. Here, the market is incredibly active, and every year we have new releases for Revit, new releases for Allplan, new releases for Aconex, and new products coming into the scene. BIM solutions, there are plenty, and we also are developing our own BIM solutions. openDBL will be a BIM solution in the world, and will be CHRONICLE perhaps another one, and so on and so on. So we are competing with the kind of Autodesk, Bentley, and to be honest, it's very funny to be able to compete with them. And what do we say here is that we already have a father of openDBL. It was created locally between Intuit and eMethody. And this is where openDBL started. The idea of openDBL started because in this test, which we did for another large Italian operator, we were able to program in our house, practically, a platform, a digital logbook with information content and with visual content that was putting together location, point clouds, photos, BIM model. And now we can always say, look, there are also satellite data that can come into the equation, because also we are also on the technological revolution side, and we don't stop here, of course. And then we have a dashboard that the clients need to, can use without doing an university degree to open up a new tool and a new version. So it must be easy to understand to everybody. So this is the father openDBL. But to create a BIM model, you need to go scan to BIM. You need to go and create the digital point clouds of any kind of building. And so here you can see only a bunch of tools that are able for you to create digital point clouds. You have stations, you have small robot or drones, and so on, which are practically at the end of everybody. openDBL is testing 3 pilots in Spain, Greece, and Italy, where we go and create BIM models out of historical buildings. Then we do internally also a model coordination, a clash detection, a code checking for our pilot test together with our pilot colleagues. So we are really not only programming the father of openDBL, but we are also helping the 3 pilot sites to understand what BIM is all about. And by the way, satellite can also help. Then we can put on the dashboard our point clouds with a nice navigation and visualization tools and linked to the information content of the IAM of the asset information model. The same if the client wants to see photos. Our client in Italy had 18,000 bridges to manage. And we told them, do you need 18,000 BIM models? Do you need 18,000 virtual reality models? Do you need 18,000 digital twins? To do what? To manage the bridges? Then are you completely crazy? You can go around, make photos like this one, and link from photos directly to the information content. So when your inspector goes there and wants to see when was the column last repaired, he has the information. He doesn't care if he has virtual reality or a nice BIM model with LOD 500. He needs to repair the bridge. This is his most important thing to do. And all your parameters you can have here. You can look at the photos. And of course, you have the same information if you want to have your BIM model. And the BIM model is needed when you need to repair, when you need to restructure, when you need to build again something. You need the geometries. Therefore, the BIM model is the most ideal tool for engineers and architects. But it's not the only tool to do facility management in a new way. So, and the final result, when we go and create openDBL, but also when we go into our clients and want to digitize, is that we leave them with the BIM guide. What is the BIM that you want? Air, how do you force your supply chain to give you the BIM that you want? PEP, how do you evaluate the answers from the offer of your suppliers? So this is procedure. And these need to be done, and these are also aligned to the standard of ISO 9000-650. So this is what the European also Commission wants. Then on the other hand, we need to have a dedicated team, BIM manager, BIM coordinator, BIM specialist, blah, blah, blah. When we go to clients, it is very, very funny. We spend 3 weeks to explain what BIM manager, coordinator, specialists do. And we wait 6 months because the clients need to decide who will be the BIM manager, who will be the BIM coordinator among ourselves. And we have seen really nice story. We can write also a book about that. When we have the procedures and when we have the dedicated team, then we create the data model, the asset database that are enough for the BIM, for the PIM, and most importantly for the IM, for the asset information model. These are our results, and this is what openDBL at the end of the day will facilitate. We will facilitate the management of how I bring BIM into the arena, and not only which technology tool I have developed today or tomorrow. And because we talk about strategic asset, organizational processes, hardware and software, procedures, supply chain, and then, of course, very important, training and coaching. People that use openDBL need to know how to use openDBL. And business processes, I don't want to bother you much longer, are all the processes that are in the building site. So from the design to the procurement, to the management of the areas, clash, expropriation, change request, site management, damages, and so on, to the test of what has been built. All these processes can be digitized. And our client told us, practically, he only wanted time, 4D. He doesn't care about the rest. Other clients want to digitize everything. It's their decision, it's their money, it's their budget, and also it's their time. But to reorganize, to bring the value, we have then to understand the strategic dimension, an organizational dimension, but most important is the personal dimension. If I go and say to client, do you want to have a BIM that changes the way you work in 4D? Then think about the Industrial Revolution at the beginning, the lady that said, oh, it can kill jobs. Yes, if I go and bring a new technology into a company, I find a lot of people that are afraid maybe the new technology will change the way they work and maybe they will kill their jobs. So when you reorganize, when you want to have success bringing those new technology tools into your company, then you have to think that people are human with emotions, and you have to work together with them and not against them to bring the result home. And how we were saying and experiencing, 𝗕𝗂𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗏, this Greek philosopher, said, nothing change but change. Changing is continuous things in our life. You can see here a very old picture that tells you the same story. We have loops of changes that never change. And with it, I stopped my presentation. And if you want to ask a question, I'm happy to answer. Okay.
Thank you, Mario, for your presentation. If anyone has a question, do drop them, or any comments to share. Please drop them in the chat. We are almost at the end of our webinar. We just have our last speaker now from DigiBuild, and you can take over.
Okay, hello, good morning, everyone. So I hope that you can see my presentation already.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So hello, good morning or good afternoon already to everyone. So thanks again for the invitation for this webinar. And yeah, I'm José Luis Hernández from 𝗕𝗃𝗏 at the America Center in Spain, and I'm representing the DigiBuild project. So in this sense, a project that aims the digitalization of the buildings. And in this line, the creation of services and tools that will increase the smart readiness of the buildings or the building stock that we have in Europe. So in this sense, my idea is to provide you a case study that our calculation in the project. So I think that it will complement the previous presentation about the BIM and IoT information from smart readiness. And for that, I would like to present DigiBuild in a nutshell about which is our objectives and our concept in DigiBuild, the methodology that we have prepared to calculate the SRI. So I think that most of you will be familiar with the SRI, but I would like to give some tips about about the SRI. I will present the baseline results that we have in DigiBuild and a couple of pilot samples as case study. Although we have calculated 10 pilot cases, but I will focus on a couple of them. And finally, to conclude the presentation with some ideas and future work that we should create in Europe. About the DigiBuild project, this you can see some information on the DigiBuild project that we are aiming to create a digital built environment with the objective of a climate neutral building stock. The project started in June 2022 with 36 months of project, so we are already beyond half of the project. We are 17 organizations from 11 countries, so a medium consortium that we have. In this sense, we have one associated partner from UK, as you can see in the screen about the different partners that we have in the project, with 10 pilots that you can see in the map. So we have one pilot in UK, we have pilots in Spain, in France, in Greece, in Romania and Finland mainly, and Italy as well, and the Netherlands. Sorry, I forgot this. The project is coordinated by engineering and large ICT company, and we have different groups of stakeholders. So you can see from the building life cycle, we involve multiple stakeholders, multiple partners, in order to create this kind of concepts based on different experiences, different needs and requirements that should be created for the digitalization of the building stock. We have the research and academic institution like the Technical University of Athens, 𝗕𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏, UniVPN, or University of Denmark, University College of London, and other partners like CHRONICLE, IACP, and EHP for co-creation, for evaluation, for dissemination, standardization, and this kind of very important aspects that should be around also the project. Our concept in the DigiBuild project, just to introduce technical aspects about the SRI, is that we have different pilots. In this case, as I presented you, 9 pilots, but 10 use cases, because the Italian pilot is split into 2 cases. With a co-creation methodology, the idea is to create this kind of requirements and concepts that we need for data ingestion and data interoperability. And we count on 3 kind of different repositories. We have the dynamic data that is linked directly with the IoT part, the static data, and here important to highlight that we are not mentioning only BIM. Static data as any kind of data that is contextual for the building, like BIM is one of the examples, but we have also energy performance certificates, we have SCADAs, we have different information that is static, and is very important as well in our context for the digitalization of the buildings. But also we have external data. We have the best example is the climate services that we have that is external, but it's very important as well to create services in this way. With this, we create a federated and enriched data lake that combines all these data sources in a single DigiBuild ontology that, of course, this ontology doesn't start from scratch. It's taking some inputs from Brick, from BOT, from IFC, and other already existing technologies in order to combine all this information from all these worlds in order to enrich the dynamic data, because usually dynamic data, IoT data, is without any context, and we are enriching this information in order to create our business intelligence map that is based on data marts per businesses, like SRI is one of our businesses, also heating, electricity, or any kind of business that you want to serve, and we create this kind of linked data by the enrichment of the data in order to share high quality data, and this is very important as well. We are providing high quality data by providing methodologies to increase the quality of the information that is being collected by the different tools to ingest data, to provide information for different services like analytics services, digital building twins, digital lookbooks, data spaces, with 4 main objectives. So first of all, the performance assessment, so benchmarking and assuring that we are increasing the assessment, the performance in terms of energy for the buildings. Planning the building infrastructure, because it's very important to count on data to schedule the different, not only management, but also retrofitting or whatever information, that whatever activity thinking in the building infrastructure. Also policy making, because we should take decisions based on data and not taking subjective decisions, but better informed decisions. So in this sense, one of the key objectives is to support this policy making and to de-risk the investments that for retrofitting, because at the end, sometimes decisions are made based on experiences or based on different contexts, but not on data. And this is very important, because imagine SRI could be a very good indicator to decide about where to invest, because maybe we have a very, very smart building in terms of heating, but not in terms of electricity. So maybe our deal is the investment in electricity improvements of the building. All of this based on a co-creation methodology, based on Bauhaus initiative, in order to create user stories and to deal with the real needs that we have from the end users. As I mentioned before, we have different end users from different businesses. So this is very important, because we are creating these kind of challenges that we have already in the building stock. About the methodology that we have using in DigiBuild, let me just recap a bit about the SRI. So SRI is defined as the ability to sense, interpret, communicate, and actively respond in an efficient manner. So this is coming from the EPBD, the directive of the smart building technology in the sector. You have some information here that you can access to go into the details, but the most important part is about which are the objectives of this smart readiness indicator. And this means like readiness to adapt the needs of the occupants. Buildings are for the occupants. This should not be forgotten. And in this sense, readiness should be an adaptation of the user's behavior, also to facilitate the operation of the buildings, the energy management systems, building energy management systems, and this kind of tools and technology that we have in the buildings, but also to be proactive with the grid, not only to respond all these needs, but also to be proactive with the grid and avoid some issues when connecting to the grid, because you know that we have already a lot of renewable energy that is being coupled in the grid. So SRI also provides some information about this readiness with different advantages like optimization of the energy use of the buildings, the storage, the diagnosis and prediction, and also the comfort for residents. So we are covering a lot of things with the SRI. In this sense, the SRI contains 9 domains and 7 impacts. Here, I would like just to highlight that not always we are focusing on all the domains and all the impacts, but we should take care about where we are, which is the real needs of the buildings, and which of these domains and impacts should be provided with the different functionalities that the SRI is providing. As you probably know, the functionalities are levels of intelligence that the services can provide. So due to limitation in budget, limitation on time, limitation on efforts, we cannot cover all the domains and all the impacts in the same way. For the calculation, we have 3 different methodologies, A, B, and C. The A is the simplified method with a limited number of services of the catalog. The B is with 54 services, while the level C is basically using the different standards in Europe about technical building systems and building automation and control systems. Within the DigiBuild, we took the methodology B, in this case, the expert SRI assessment, where 𝗕𝗏 supported the different pilot leaders in order to provide the services that and the impacts, functionality levels, and so on that the buildings has. And just to recap that this is according to the Building Performance Institute, we have this overview about the smart readiness adaptation in Europe. So we can see different levels of or degree of adaptation to the SRI in Europe. And later I will show you what is the status according to DigiBuild and in contrast to these maps. That's why I wanted to show this map as well. For the calculation of the SRI, there are several tools, and in DigiBuild we took the last one, the user Smart Readiness Indicator digital tool, due to the simplicity of this tool, and as well as the tool was really mapped to the old version of the Excel sheet, so it was easier for the pilots to take this tool and to calculate the SRI. With this, I would like to highlight the results in DigiBuild. As I mentioned before, we have 10 use cases for 9 pilots, and you can see here the different levels or degrees of smart readiness in the different cases. So as you can see, I would like to highlight Finland, as it was before in the BBIE case, one of the countries with the highest smart readiness in Europe. So you can see in blue that is one of the highest, or also in the table is the highest one. But you can see that in our case, the case of UCL, the United Kingdom case, is the highest mark. There are 2 reasons I will later focus on this pilot. The first one is that it's a new building. So of course we have more smart appliances in the building, but we count on more data. And I will not anticipate this part, but we count on more data, and I will present later. While in the rest of Europe, you can see that the levels are lower, and we have a lot of room for improvement in all the countries in Europe. The reason is that the smart services are not being applied in a full mode, and we can increase this part. Basically, also, we have another problem, that is the lack of data. And as I mentioned before, one of the objectives of the DigiBuild is the enrichment of dynamic data with the contextual data that will provide advanced services. So in this case, at the moment, these advanced services are not being applied in the different countries, in the different pilots that we have around Europe. And this is a good map that we can see different parts in Europe counting on different levels of SRI. Of course, there are many more buildings in Europe, but this can be a sample of what is happening around Europe. About the, let me go to the two cases. In this case, for the UCL pilot. So you can see that for the here you can see the domains and the impact parts that we have calculated in this pilot. As I mentioned before, not always all the impacts or all the domains should be covered. And here you can see the best example is the dynamic building envelope. So in this case, we count on a pilot that we don't have assets or facilities about dynamic building envelope, like shadowing cases. So we cannot, this is one good example about we cannot cover all the things to improve the energy efficiency in buildings, because we don't have this kind of facility. So maybe this indicator can provide us a very good opportunity to improve this part, but of course we need to invest. So if you remember at the beginning, I mentioned that one of the objectives of the DigiBuild is to provide keys or tips about investments. So here we can see one good example about where to invest and where to improve the energy efficiency in buildings. About the impacts, basically you can see that we have a very good levels of impacts to provide a final score that is D, 58. That is a very good value. And here, let me go to the reasoning about why. Even though this is a very new building with good systems about the cooling, heating, and ventilation, they are providing already advanced energy systems in the building based on the state-of-the-art building management systems. But they count on BIM files. So this BIM, together the dynamic data that they have. So you can see that more than 6,000 data points are available. So it's a very intense monitoring system provided in this pilot. With this combination of information, the pilot is able to create advanced services because they are providing all this BMS and sensor data is being enriched with BIM and providing high-level services. For instance, one of the services for heating is being able to control room by room the heating set points. In many buildings, this is not feasible because we don't count on thermostats in different buildings. We don't count on different circuits for heating system. But BIM combined with dynamic data provides some advantages, like classifying the different rooms, different spaces, different zones, in order to provide different set points per zone or per space or per room. So in this case, this enrichment of data is providing advanced services that are able to provide better informed decisions to the owners, and in this sense, more information to be provided. So highlighting the Smart Readiness indicator. For the second case, you can see the Spanish pilot, in this case for Veolia as an ESCO, and you can see the great differences that we have in the domains. So the Veolia pilot is focused on a district heating network. So you can see that there are other systems that are not providing at all. So like cooling, ventilation, dynamic building envelope, or electrical vehicle charging. In this sense, here I wanted to highlight that we have buildings with a lot of differences between domains and impact parts providing SRI, and of course providing less level of readiness to apply different smart technologies. So with this, I wanted to highlight that we have some objective indicators that allow us to provide more insights about the digitalization of buildings in Europe and more insights about energy efficiency. And here the difference, in contrast to the UCL pilot, is that we have a district heating network with a different combination and advanced management systems as well. We have building energy management system and district energy management system. In contrast to UCL, we don't count on enrichment of data. We count only on sensors and data.
No me está molestando, es solamente una pregunta.
No, sorry. Okay. So in this sense, we count on the advanced management systems from this case, as well as was happening in UCL. But we don't count on this enrichment of data that are able to provide more insights about how to control, how to manage the systems. But we count on SCADA systems. This SCADA system can provide this static information of the configuration of the network, but it is still not enough. Even though we have many monitoring variables, we cannot count on all the contextual data that is provided in the other pilots. So this is creating this kind of discrepancies between two pilots and providing you a sample, a case study, a real case study about what is how we can improve the SRI of buildings by providing data, not only IoT data, but also BIM, and not only by BIM, but also contextual data based on different energy performance contracts, digital building logbooks, etc. And here I would like to conclude my presentation with some tips about my presentation. So for us, SRI is indicator for readiness in order to adopt these intelligent technologies and increase the energy performance of building. IoT, we can take this point as twofold key factor. First of all, monitoring data. I showed you before 2 different buildings with very high monitoring data, but of course, this is not the case in many buildings in Europe. Sometimes we count on very low level of monitoring systems, basically smart meters for the whole electricity consumption, or maybe the heating system consumption, but not counting on disaggregation methods to obtain this data that is very important to apply smart services. That is the second point about the IoT. This monitoring data will provide better insights to create these smart services, to better control of the buildings, to better management of buildings. And not only this, providing information to the end users, that is very important, is one of the key topics in the SRI. Also having this information in order to make better informed decisions. Sometimes there are simple visualization tools, and we need to provide key performance indicators to make decisions, not just providing trends. And BIM is a complementary data. This provides additional functionalities. As I provided you before, with the case of UCL, they are able to provide smart services based on the contextual data that they are providing. And this is key for the increasing of the smart readiness of the buildings in Europe. And of course, if we increase the level of digitalization, we will increase the SRI. But let me finalize with a tip that is not just about digitalization, but using data properly. And this is very important because now in the digital era, we are just having data, but what to do with the data? This is the key point. And this is not only the key point for the SRI. This is the key point for any intervention that we need to do in a building, like making decisions, creating analytics, or whatever. So just think about what to monitor, why to monitor, and where to monitor. So with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much. If you have any question, any doubt, you can do it now, or you have here my mail or the DigiBuild project information. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Jose. Very interesting. I completely agree with you. I think data is one of the most important issues that we are trying to solve. How to collect, manage, and analyze data is going to be one of the most important point of our research. So I think we finished 1 hour earlier. And I think we discussed methods and technologies that for sure will change part of the future of the industry, of the buildings and the construction in general. And I hope we talk about useful concepts that have been transferred to you, to your work, your company, or your studies. I would like to say again, thanks a lot to our colleagues from CHRONICLE and DigiBuild projects, that are our sister project. And absolutely, we are planning for the next 2 years new webinars. So stay tuned and follow us on our channels, social channels, and web channels. Thank you very much again for your time and for your attention, and see you soon. Thanks to all.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you for the invitation. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.